Welcome everyone. This is our weekly Facebook live Q&A session. If this is your first time, to quick review, any questions you have, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will answer them as I see them come up. Just please consider that there is a little delay from when you hit send to when I see it. And then if you're watching the replay, you can still submit your questions. Any questions that are submitted on replay, I will answer in the following week's Q&A. If you have questions, but they're a little too personal to kind of put out public in the comments, feel free. You can always message us, and we can either have a side conversation or pick it up as a topic for next week's live Q&A. So what I wanted to open with talking about today is our tendency toward what we call negativity bias. So our subconscious is kind of wired to alert us and focus and pay attention to anything that is kind of negative, hazardous. The reason for this, what they believe is that it helps us quickly identify threats. Whereas, like, we don't need to quickly identify friends because they're friends, so they're not a threat. So it doesn't have to like blink, blink, blink at the top of our conscious awareness that, hey, your friends are over there. Whereas, if a predator, another tribe, or whatever sort of danger is present, we need to be aware of that. So that kept us alive, for thousands of years. The challenge is now a lot of the negativity that we face isn't really life-threatening, but it can be damaging in the sense that we end up only focusing on that. And what I mean by that is, especially as more and more of us are kind of in online forums and things like social media like this is, people can be a little more harmful, rude, disrespectful in their responses and comments because they have protection of not being face to face with any sort of blowback that might come. And because of that, people will often put more things out there that are negative for you, and we tend to focus on that more. However, if we do get a compliment, whether it be in person, online, we tend to kind of brush it off. We don't listen and take it to heart as much as a lot of the harsh criticisms and negativities that come in. So on this topic, the first kind of thing is kind of being aware of that and realizing that we have kind of an autopilot programming to latch on and focus on any sort of that negative feedback. So sometimes people may say something, whether it be about our outfit, the way we look, a variety of things, and it may have a neutral tone to it. Oftentimes we have the inclination to give it a negative aspect to it, even though there was not necessarily anything they meant by it. It may have just been simply a observation of, they didn't put a whole lot into it. They just said, oh, you got a haircut, or, oh, you're wearing that shirt. Again, it might just be a simple observation. They're not necessarily judging you for it. It's just something that they notice. Everyone's a little bit different. Sometimes people they will speak to things that they notice. They don't have any sort of agenda or judgment behind it. It's just they feel that things need to be said. And sometimes if we're a little too open to those criticisms, we tend to put too much of a negative focus on it, and we let that kind of come in and go too far to heart. Whereas someone might give you a compliment where they say like, oh, you look really good, you've lost a lot of weight, and we'll kind of brush it off, maybe out of embarrassment, maybe out of trying to some sort of semblance of politeness that we were taught about, not to brag about ourselves. But we will quickly brush off compliments. But if someone says the slightest kind of negative judgment or observation of us, we'll immediately kind of go into everything behind that negative comment and what it means about us and the impact. And it it can become this really down negative spiral that just makes everything amplified in a more negative filter for us, even more so. So just a thought, an idea to kind of be aware of as you're developing yourself, especially as you are trying to make fitness improvements, nutrition improvements, or any sort of health improvement. Um, as you go through and as you let others know, there's going to be comments. Don't obsess over anything that's negative, because you don't have, one, you don't have to. Two, it's not going to be beneficial for you. And then three, I would kind of leave this whole conversation with this thought. As you are trying to improve yourself, a lot of times as you're elevating yourself, whether it be improving yourself through education, um, your work, going into business for yourself, improving your health and well-being, some people will often add some negative judgment or negative attack towards you. And it has nothing to do with you. It has more to do with their insecurities of what your positive elevate movement in life reminds them of kind of where they're at from a negative perspective. So there's kind of two different sides to that. So, but don't take every negative comment to heart that you receive, because a lot of times it has more to do with the individual delivering it and less to do with anything of your real truth and real journey of what you're doing and accomplishing. So, just a kind of a thought to consider. Um, I've come across it fairly often working with clients, and we always have that tendency to focus on the negative things in our life because of that subconscious negativity bias that we're programmed with. That's the reason why doing things like positivity journals, reframing, different things of that nature to kind of refocus ourselves into more positive things that are going on. Um, it, it can make a big difference in kind of how you end up feeling about your day. Um, I've noticed it with, clients. I've noticed it with spouse, even my son. Sometimes if he has, one bad thing happen in a day, when you ask him, hey, what happened at school, how did school go, he's going to focus on just that one thing and forget about a lot of the other good stuff. So sometimes I have to kind of ask things, and you guys can work with this for kind of your positive reframing of, you know, one things that I ask him are, who helped you today? Who did you help today? And did you laugh today? So just little things to kind of refocus, reframe into positive areas can go a long way in reshaping where we put our focus and where we put a lot of that emphasis. And whatever you focus on, you're going to get more on. So more of. So if you focus only on negative things, that's usually where everything's going to go. If you focus on more positive things, that's where everything's going to go. And especially, this day and age, where a lot of our media intake, when we're online and on these different platforms, um, the algorithms amplify that even more. So if you start interacting and watching negative thing after negative thing after negative thing on these different media platforms, their algorithms are going to start showing more of that, because that's what you're choosing to give your attention and your energy to. So kind of keep that in mind when you're choosing some of your media on these platforms. Um, Too many negative videos can lead to only negative videos showing up in your recommended and in your feeds. Whereas if you watch more positive, more fun things, that's more what's going to show up in your feed. Just a few things to kind of think about. Like I said, it's been a sticking point that I see for a lot of people when I coach. So just keep in mind that we have that subconscious um, autopilot training to focus on negative things, but that doesn't mean that that's the only thing truly going on in our life. So keep that in mind. focus on some positives too. Even if you need to reframe, you can use some of the reframing ideas that we talked about. And always be mindful of the content you're interacting with, because you're going to see more of that the more times you interact with it. So you can start training some of these platforms on what you want to see. Do you want to see negative things? Do you want to see more positive, uplifting things? So just a few things to keep in mind. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great week. And remember to stay persistent in your consistent pursuit of health.